The morning sun rose over the hills of New Seoul, casting long shadows across Jun's small research station. He stood on the rocky outcrop and looked down at the colony in the valley below. The lights of the main settlement twinkled in the distance, so close, yet he felt a world away. Jun sipped his bitter coffee and sighed. 5 years of exile. 5 years since the Science Council had called his work dangerous nonsense and sent him to this outpost at the edge of human space. "They'll see," he muttered to himself. "One day they'll all see." A loud caw broke the morning quiet. Jun turned to see Crow emerging from the large barn behind his lab. The creature stood as tall as a horse, its black feathers gleaming blue in the sunlight. Its intelligent eyes found Jun, and it trotted toward him with graceful steps. "Good morning, old friend," Jun said, reaching up to stroke Crow's sleek neck. The bird-like creature leaned into his touch and made a soft trilling sound. Crow was Jun's greatest creation, a genetically modified corvid, grown to massive size and with enhanced brain capacity. The colony people laughed when they saw it. They called Jun crazy for making such a strange pet. "He's more than a pet," Jun had tried to explain once at the colony's monthly market. "Crow is the key to understanding alien communication." That had only made them laugh harder. Jun walked back to his lab with Crow following close behind. The lab was a mess of papers, samples, and equipment. On the walls hung stone rubbings from the alien ruins that dotted the hills nearby. Strange symbols that no human had ever decoded. "Let's check your readings from last night," Jun said, turning on his computer. The screen lit up with brainwave patterns from Crow's sleep monitor. Jun had been tracking the creature's neural activity for months. He was sure that Crow's enhanced brain would eventually help crack the code of the alien language in the ruins. A beep from his communication panel interrupted his work. It was a message from Minji, a young diplomat at the Colony Administration Center. Jun smiled. She was one of the few people who didn't think he was completely crazy. "Jun, important news," her message read. "A Talon delegation is arriving tomorrow for talks. The first major alien contact since colony founding. Director Han says you are not to come near the meeting hall." "Sorry." Jun's hands tightened into fists. The Talons were the most powerful alien race in this sector. And here they were, coming to New Seoul. And he, the colony's top xenobiologist, was being told to stay away. "Afraid I'll embarrass them, are they?" he muttered. Crow made a soft sound and pressed its large beak against Jun's shoulder. The creature always seemed to sense his moods. "It's okay, Crow. We don't need their approval. We're doing the real work here." Jun went to a large cabinet and pulled out his latest finds from the ruins, a small stone tablet with spiral markings that matched nothing in human language databases. He'd found it buried near what seemed to be an ancient altar. "The answer is in these ruins," he told Crow, running his fingers over the strange marks. "Something happened here, long before humans or even Talons existed. Something important." Crow hopped closer, its eyes fixed on the tablet. It made an unusual sound, a series of clicks and whistles that Jun had never heard before. "What's that?" Jun looked up at his creation with surprise. "Do it again." But Crow just cocked its head to one side and remained silent. Outside, thunder rumbled across the hills. A storm was coming. Jun went to the window and looked at the dark clouds gathering over the ancient ruins on the hillside. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the stone structures. "They think I'm wasting my time out here," Jun said quietly. "They think I'm a joke. But we're close to something big, Crow. I can feel it." The massive bird stood beside him at the window, its reflection merging with Jun's in the glass. Man and creation, watching the storm roll in together. They didn't know it yet, but the arrival of the Talons would change everything. And soon, no one would be laughing at Jun or his horse-sized crow. The Talon ship landed in a cloud of dust outside the main colony hall. Jun watched from the hills through his binoculars. The ship was sleek and silver, shaped like a teardrop, nothing like the bulky human ships. We should be down there. Crow, Jun said. The large bird stood beside him, its head tilted as it watched the ship too. Colony workers rolled out a red carpet for the visitors. Director Han and his staff waited in a neat line, all wearing their best clothes. Jun spotted Minji among them, looking nervous. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss. 3 tall figures stepped out. The Talons were thin and pale blue, with long limbs and no hair. They wore shimmering robes that changed color in the sunlight. "Look at them," whispered Jun. "They're different from the pictures in our database." Crow made a low sound in its throat. It seemed uneasy. That night, Jun's communication panel beeped. It was Minji calling. "I can only talk for a minute," she said, her face worried on the screen. The meeting did not go well. "What happened?" asked Jun. Director Han tried to impress them by showing off our technology. The Talons seemed bored. Then they asked about the ruins on the hills. Han told them they were just old rocks, nothing important. Minji looked over her shoulder. They got very quiet after that. Jun sat up straight. They asked about the ruins. "That's strange." "I know. And there's more. I heard them talking when they thought no one was listening. They spoke of silencing something here. I don't know what they meant." A noise in the background made Minji jump. "I have to go. There's another meeting tomorrow. I'll try to learn more." The screen went dark. Jun looked at Crow, who was watching him closely. Why would advanced aliens care about old ruins? He wondered. The next day, Jun decided to risk going into the colony. He put on a hooded coat and left Crow at the lab. The streets were busy with people talking about the aliens. Jun slipped into the back of a small crowd gathered outside the meeting hall. He could see through the windows. Director Han was showing the Talons maps of the colony. Then one of the Talons pointed to the hills where the ruins and Jun's lab were located. Han shook his head. The alien's face changed color, turning from blue to a dark purple. It was saying something that made Han step back in alarm. Suddenly, guards moved toward the windows and closed the blinds. The crowd started to break up, but Jun stayed, trying to figure out what had happened. A hand grabbed his arm. It was Minji. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, pulling him into a narrow space between buildings. "What's going on?" Jun asked. "It's bad," said Minji. "The Talons want access to the ruins." Han said no because it's not part of the trade agreement. The head Talon, Sue, got angry and said humans are too primitive to understand what they're sitting on. Jun's heart raced. They know something about the ruins. Yes, and now they're threatening to label humans as a hostile species if we don't cooperate. Minji looked scared. Han is trying to calm things down, but he's making it worse. He doesn't understand their customs. "I need to get back to my lab," said Jun. "I think." A loud alarm cut him off. Colony security officers were moving through the streets. "They're looking for Talon sympathizers," said Minji. "Han is paranoid. You need to leave now." "Meet me tomorrow if you can," Jun said. "Bring any information about what the Talons know about the ruins." He hurried away, keeping his head down. As he reached the edge of the colony, he looked back. The Talon ship glowed softly in the fading light. Something was very wrong. The aliens hadn't come for trade or friendship. They'd wanted something in the ruins. And Jun was determined to find out what it was before they did. When he got back to his lab, Crow was waiting at the door, pacing back and forth. The moment Jun entered, the giant bird let out a series of clicks and whistles. The same strange sounds from before, but more of them now. "What's gotten into you?" Jun asked, watching Crow with growing curiosity. That night, Jun could not sleep. He paced in his lab, thinking about the Talons and their interest in the ruins. Outside, a strong wind blew across the hills, making the walls of his small building creak. "There has to be a connection," he muttered to himself. He checked on Crow, who was resting in the large sleeping area Jun had built for it. The creature's chest rose and fell with slow breaths. June had placed sensors on Crow's head to monitor its brain activity during sleep. This was part of his regular research. June went back to his computer to look at the data coming in from the sensors. At first, everything seemed normal. Then suddenly, the screen showed a spike in brain activity. In the sleeping area, Crow began to twitch. Its large beak opened and closed. And then, it started to make sounds. June rushed over with his recording device. The sounds coming from Crow were unlike anything he had heard before. Not like bird calls. Not like any animal on New Sol. They were complex patterns of clicks, whistles, and deep rumbles. For nearly 10 minutes, Crow made these sounds in its sleep. Then it went quiet again. June played back the recording, his hands shaking with excitement. He loaded the sounds into his computer and compared them to all known languages in the database. No match for human languages. No match for the few alien languages they had records of. Then, on a hunch, June pulled up the symbols from the stone tablets he had found in the ruins. He ran a pattern analysis, comparing the sound waves from Crow's speech to the patterns of symbols on the tablets. The computer beeped. On the screen, the words flashed. Pay-T-T-E-R in Make-Chish 78%. This can't be, June whispered. Crow is speaking the language of the ruins. He stayed up all night, analyzing the data again and again. By morning, he was sure. Somehow, Crow was producing sounds that matched the patterns of the ancient symbols. As the sun rose, Crow woke up. It looked at June with its intelligent eyes, but made no unusual sounds. It acted normal, as if nothing had happened in the night. June's communication panel beeped. It was Minji. "I can't talk long," she said. Her face looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. "Things are getting worse. The Talons are demanding access to the ruins by tomorrow, or they will break off all contact with humans in this sector." "Did you learn anything about why they want access?" June asked. "Yes. I overheard them talking. They called the ruins a seed vault, and mentioned something called forerunners. Does that mean anything to you?" June thought of the old stories, myths really, about a race that had lived long before any known species, a race that had spread life across the galaxy, and then vanished. "Forerunners are just legends," he said. "Stories about ancient beings who came before all other life." "Well, the Talons don't think they're just stories. And there's something else." Minji lowered her voice. "They seem afraid of something in the ruins, something they call the memory carrier." Just then, Crow walked up behind June and let out a series of clicks and whistles, the same sounds it had made in its sleep. Minji's eyes widened on the screen. "What was that?" "That," said June, "might be the biggest discovery in human history." He quickly told her about Crow's nighttime speaking and how it matched the patterns from the ruins. "The Talons must know about this," said Minji. "Maybe that's why they're here. They're looking for the memory carrier." She looked over her shoulder again. "I have to go. Director Han is calling an emergency meeting. Be careful, June." After the call ended, June looked at Crow with new eyes. All this time, he had been trying to use Crow's enhanced brain to help decode the ancient language. But what if the connection went deeper? What if his genetic modifications had awakened something that was already there, buried in Crow's DNA? "What secrets are you carrying, old friend?" he asked softly. Crow looked back at him, and for the first time while awake, opened its beak and spoke in the dead tongue of the Forerunners. June worked through the day, recording every sound Crow made. The bird-like creature seemed more alert now, its eyes bright and focused. It would stare at the stone tablets for long periods, then make series of clicks and whistles that June rushed to record. "This is amazing," he said as he studied the sound patterns. "You're not just making random noise. You're speaking full sentences in a language that died millions of years ago." Crow bobbed its large head as if it understood. As evening fell, June's communication panel lit up again. Minji's face appeared, her eyes wide with fear. "They're coming for Crow," she said, her voice shaking. Director Han told the Talons about your research, about your large bird that makes strange sounds. The head Talon, Sue, became very agitated. He demanded that Crow be turned over to them immediately. June felt cold fear spread through his body. What did Han say? He refused at first, said Crow was your property. But then Sue offered advanced weapons technology in exchange. Han couldn't resist. Minji looked away from the screen. "He's sending Security Chief Dad to your lab tonight to take Crow. They'll be there in an hour." "Thank you for warning me," Jun said. "I need to go now." "Be careful," Minji said. "And Jun, I believe in your work." The screen went dark. Jun turned to Crow, who was watching him closely. "We need to leave," he said. "Now." Jun quickly packed his most important research, the stone tablets, his computer with all the recordings, and some food and water. He put everything in a backpack and slung it over his shoulder. "Come on, Crow," he said, opening the door to the night outside. "We're going to the ruins." The night was clear and cold, with 3 moons lighting their way. June and Crow moved quickly across the hills. The ruins stood on the highest hill, their broken shapes black against the night sky. Just as they reached the first stone structures, Jun heard the hum of vehicles below. Lights cut through the darkness as 3 colony security vehicles sped toward his lab. "Quick," he whispered to Crow. "In here." They ducked into a small chamber in the ruins. The walls were covered with the same symbols that matched Crow's strange language. June had explored this area many times, but never at night. Outside, he heard voices and saw the beams of flashlights. Security Chief Dad was shouting orders. "Search the whole area." They couldn't have gone far. June and Crow moved deeper into the ruins, through narrow passages that June had mapped over the years. They came to a chamber that June had never fully explored, a round room with a domed ceiling that had partly collapsed. "We'll be safe here for now," June whispered. Crow walked to the center of the room and let out a series of sounds. Suddenly, faint blue light began to glow from the symbols carved into the walls. June had never seen anything like it. "What did you do?" he asked in amazement. The light grew stronger. Symbols that had been hidden by dirt and time became visible all around them. The entire chamber was covered in the ancient script. Outside, they heard the security team getting closer. Flashlight beams cut through cracks in the walls. "They're going to find us," Jun said, his voice tight with worry. Crow looked at him, then at the glowing symbols. It made a new series of sounds, different from before. The blue light pulsed in response. Part of the floor began to move. A section of stone slid aside, revealing a hidden passage leading down into darkness. "A secret room," June whispered. He looked at Crow with new respect. "You knew it was here." Voices came from just outside the chamber. Chief Dad was giving orders to check every room. "In there," June said, pointing to the passage. "Quickly." Crow went first, its large form disappearing into the darkness. June followed, his heart pounding. Just as he entered the passage, the stone door began to slide shut behind them. The last thing June saw was the beam of a flashlight cutting into the chamber, and then the stone closed completely, sealing them in ancient darkness. Complete darkness surrounded June. He could hear crows breathing nearby, but could see nothing. The air felt old and dry. "We need light," he whispered. He fumbled in his backpack and found a small light stick. When he cracked it, soft blue light filled the space around them. They were in a long corridor with smooth walls. Unlike the ruins above, this place was undamaged. The walls were covered with the same symbols, but here they were perfectly preserved. "This place has been sealed for thousands of years," Jun said in wonder. "Maybe millions." Crow made a soft sound and started walking down the corridor. June followed. The passage sloped gently downward, taking them deeper under the hills. After about 10 minutes of walking, they came to a large circular room. June's small light couldn't reach the far walls or ceiling. He felt very small in this ancient space. In the center of the room stood a tall pillar made of a material that wasn't stone or metal. It seemed to absorb the light from June's tick rather than reflect it. Crow walked straight to the pillar and touched it with its beak. Instantly, the pillar began to glow with soft light that spread throughout the room. June gasped. The entire room was a map of the galaxy, with thousands of stars and planets marked with symbols. Some of the symbols matched those on the stone tablets he had studied. "This is incredible," he whispered. Crow made a series of complex sounds, clicks, whistles, and deep tones. The room responded. The map shifted, zooming in on one small section of the galaxy, a star system with 12 planets. "That's our system," said June. "How did you do that?" Crow looked at him with its intelligent eyes, then made more sounds. The map zoomed in further, showing New Sol. Then it changed to show images, scenes from a time long past. June watched in amazement as the images played out on the walls around them. They showed tall, elegant beings building great cities. They showed the same beings working with animals, including birds that looked like ancient ancestors of Crow. "The Forerunners," June whispered. They were real. More images appeared. The Forerunners were facing some kind of threat. They were preparing for something. June couldn't understand all of it, but he could see they were afraid. Then the images showed the Forerunners working with the animals again. They seemed to be changing them somehow, putting something into them. They were hiding information, June realized. In the animals' DNA, they were creating memory carriers. He looked at Crow with new understanding. "That's what you are." Somehow, my genetic modifications unlocked memories hidden in corvid DNA for millions of years. Crow made a sound that seemed like agreement. New images appeared on the walls. They showed another species emerging after the Forerunners were gone. Blue-skinned beings. "The Talons," said June. The images showed the Talons finding ruins like these, learning from them, growing powerful, but then doing something that made June's blood run cold. The Talons were destroying the ruins and hunting down animals that matched descriptions of memory carriers. "They're erasing history," June said. "But why?" His thoughts were interrupted by a distant rumbling from above. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They must be using explosives to get into the ruins," he said. Just then, his communication panel beeped. Somehow, the signal was reaching him even underground. It was Minji. "June, can you hear me? The situation is worse than we thought. I stole data from the Talon ship." Her voice was breathless, as if she had been running. "They've been to 17 planets before ours. Each time, they destroyed ruins like ours and took certain animals for study. None of those animals were ever seen again. They're hunting memory carriers," June said. "What?" "The Forerunners hid their knowledge in certain species. Crow is one of them. The Talons don't want that knowledge to get out." More rumbling came from above, closer now. "They're coming, June," Minji said. "And they're not just after Crow anymore. Director Han saw the data I stole. Now the Talons want both of us eliminated." The connection cut off with a burst of static. More dust fell from the ceiling as the rumbling continued. June looked at Crow, worry clear on his face. "We need to understand more before they find us," he said. June pulled out his computer and connected it to the sensors he had placed on Crow earlier. On the screen, he could see Crow's brain activity. It was unlike anything he had ever recorded before. "Your brain isn't just making these sounds," June said. "It's accessing stored information, like opening very old files." Crow walked around the circular room, stopping at different parts of the wall map. Each time it made sounds, new images appeared. One set of images showed the Forerunners working with many different animals, not just birds like Crow, but mammals, reptiles, even some sea creatures. Each animal was receiving something from the Forerunners. They didn't put all their knowledge in one place, Jun realized. They split it up among different species across many worlds, a backup system for their civilization. Another image showed the Talons again, but this time it showed them being created by the Forerunners. "Wait," said June, moving closer. "The Talons were made by the Forerunners. They were created, not evolved." The images continued, showing the Talons being given great responsibility. They were meant to watch over worlds after the Forerunners were gone, to be caretakers. But something went wrong. June whispered as the next images played. The Talons were shown turning against their creators, using knowledge given to them by the Forerunners to take control instead of protect. "They betrayed them," said June. "And now they're destroying evidence of what really happened. They're hiding their own origin." The rumbling above grew louder. Small pieces of stone began to fall around them. Crow made urgent sounds toward the pillar in the center of the room. The pillar glowed brighter, and a section of it opened up. Inside was a small crystal, pulsing with inner light. "What is that?" June asked. Crow made more sounds. The images on the wall showed the crystal being used to activate something huge, a network of communication devices that could reach across the galaxy. "A key," June said. "It's a key to activate the Forerunner's communication system." He carefully took the crystal from the pillar and put it in his pocket. Just as he did, a large crack appeared in the ceiling. Dust and small rocks rained down. "We need to get out of here," he said. Crow made more sounds, and a new doorway opened in the wall of the round room. They hurried through it just as part of the ceiling collapsed behind them. The new passage led upward. They followed it quickly, hearing the sounds of destruction behind them. After several minutes of climbing, they reached a dead end. Crow made a series of rapid clicks. The wall in front of them slid open, revealing the night sky. They had come out at a different part of the ruins, far from where they entered. In the distance, June could see lights and movement. Colony security forces and Talons were searching the main ruins. "We need to find Minji," June said. "She has proof of what the Talons have been doing." Just then, his communication panel beeped again. "June," Minji's voice was even more urgent now. "I'm hiding near the old supply depot. The Talons have ordered all their ships to come to New Seoul. They're planning something big. Where are you?" "We're in the ruins, but we found a way out. We'll come to you. Stay hidden. Hurry." "And June, I found something else in their data. The Talons aren't just afraid of memory carriers like Crow. They're afraid of what happens when the carriers start communicating with each other. There are reports of similar creatures on other worlds starting to make strange sounds, all at the same time." June looked at Crow with wonder. "It's not just you. It's happening everywhere. The Talons call it the Awakening," Minji continued, "and they're terrified of it." The communication cut off again. June put away his panel and looked at Crow. "We need to get to that supply depot without being seen," he said, "and then we need to find a way to tell everyone the truth about the Talons." Crow made a soft sound and pointed its beak toward the stars. June and Crow moved carefully through the night. They stayed in the shadows, avoiding the searchlights that swept across the hills. Twice they had to hide as colony security vehicles passed by. "We're almost there," June whispered as they reached the edge of the colony. The old supply depot was a large metal building at the far end of the settlement. Few people went there anymore since the new depot had been built closer to the landing field. As they approached, June saw a small light flickering inside. He knocked softly on the side door. The light went out immediately. "Minji," he called quietly. "It's us." The door opened a crack, and Minji peered out. When she saw June, relief washed over her face. Then her eyes widened at the sight of Crow. "I've never seen it up close before," she said, stepping back to let them in. "It's bigger than I expected." Inside, Minji had set up a small camp. She had a portable computer, some food, and a few supplies in a bag. "I can't go back," she said. "They know I took the data. Director Han has labeled me a traitor." "Show me what you found," June said. Minji opened her computer and brought up files with strange symbols. Talon writing. Parts had been translated into human language. This is their record of worlds they visited, she explained. Every time they locate ruins, destroy them, and capture animals they call potential carriers. Look at the dates. They've been doing this for hundreds of years. June studied the screen. They're trying to erase their own history, to hide that they were created to serve, not rule. There's more, Minji said. She brought up another file. This is from just 3 days ago. Reports from Talon ships across the galaxy. Animals on 17 different worlds have started making strange sounds. Sounds that match ancient Forerunner language patterns. It's happening everywhere, Jun said. He looked at Crow. They're all waking up. But why now? Crow made a series of sounds. Minji jumped back in surprise. It's talking, she asked. Not exactly, said Jun. It's accessing memories that were hidden in its DNA by the Forerunners millions of years ago. My genetic modifications somehow unlocked them. He showed her the crystal he had found. And this may be a key to activate some kind of communication system. Before Minji could respond, they heard engines outside. Bright lights suddenly flooded through the windows of the depot. Find them, a voice shouted. It was Security Chief Da. The Talons want them alive. Back door, Minji whispered, grabbing her bag. They ran through the large storage room toward the back of the building. But as they reached the door, it burst open. 2 colony security officers rushed in, pointing weapons at them. Don't move, one shouted. From the front of the building, more officers entered. Behind them came Chief Dai and a tall Talon that Jun recognized from the images as Su, the leader of the delegation. They were trapped. The fugitives are captured, Dai reported to the Talon, and the creature as well. The Talon stepped forward, its blue skin glowing slightly in the dim light. It looked at Crow with cold eyes. This is indeed a memory carrier, it said in a smooth voice. One of the most developed I have seen. It must be contained immediately. What are you afraid of? June asked, standing in front of Crow. That everyone will learn you betrayed your creators. That you were made to serve, not rule. The Talon's skin darkened with anger. You know nothing, human. The Forerunners were fools who would have let chaos rule the galaxy. We'd brought order. By destroying history, by killing innocent creatures. Necessary steps for galactic stability, the Talon said coldly. Now step aside. The carrier must be neutralized. No, said Jun. He pulled out the crystal key. This is what you really fear, the truth getting out. The Talon's eyes fixed on the crystal. Where did you get that? Give it to me now. Behind Jun, Crow suddenly stepped forward. It opened its beak and began to speak in the ancient language, louder and more complex than ever before. The crystal in Jun's hand began to glow. The Talon stepped back, genuine fear showing on its face for the first time. Stop it, Su commanded. Security Chief, silence that creature. But Crow kept speaking. And now something strange was happening. The metal walls of the depot began to vibrate. Every electronic device in the room, lights, weapons, computers, flickered and buzzed. Chief Day raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the crystal flashed with blinding light. When the light faded, everyone in the room stood frozen in shock. The security officer's weapons had stopped working. Chief Dad was pressing the trigger of his gun, but nothing happened. The Talon Su backed away from Crow, real fear showing on his blue face. What have you done? He hissed. Crow kept speaking in the ancient language. The crystal in Jun's hand floated up into the air. It spun slowly, growing brighter, sending beams of light around the room. The communication array, Jun whispered as understanding dawned on him. This is what the Forerunners planned. Outside the depot, a strange humming filled the air. Through the windows, they could see lights coming from the direction of the ruins. Bright blue beams shot up into the night sky. The ruins are activating, Minji said in wonder. All of them at once. Su turned to Chief Da. We must destroy this building immediately. Call for explosives. But before Da could move, The crystal shot a beam of light directly at Crow. The huge bird glowed with blue light. When it spoke again, its voice was deeper, clearer, almost like a human voice, but with strange echoes and tones no human could make. "The time of hiding is over," Crow said in words everyone could understand. "The truth will be known." June, Minji, and even the security officers stared in amazement. The Talon tried to run for the door, but found himself frozen in place by an invisible force. "What is happening?" Chief Dai asked, looking at his useless weapon. "Crow is connecting to the Forerunner's communication network," June explained, watching the crystal's light spread. The crystal was the key. "And I think Crow is using it to broadcast." "Broadcast what?" Minji asked. "Everything. The truth. The memories it carries." The crystal now glowed so brightly it was hard to look at directly. The beams from the ruins grew stronger, reaching high into the sky where they joined together in a bright point above the colony. Inside the depot, Crow began to speak again, this time in a mixture of the ancient language and words they could understand. As it spoke, images appeared in the air around them, projected from the crystal. The images showed the history of the Forerunners, their rise as a species, their spread across the galaxy, their decision to create the Talons as helpers and caretakers, and then the Talons' betrayal. "Stop this," Sue shouted, struggling against the invisible force holding him. "This is forbidden knowledge." But Crow continued. The images showed the Forerunners' final plan, hiding their knowledge and history in the DNA of certain species across thousands of worlds, creating memory carriers that would one day awaken and share the truth. "This signal is going everywhere," Minji said, checking her computer, which had somehow started working again. "It's being picked up on every colony world, every ship, every communication device in the sector." "Not just our sector," Jun said. "Look." On Minji's screen, reports were coming in from all across known space. Similar ruins on other worlds were activating. Other memory carriers, animals of all kinds, were beginning to speak in the ancient language. "It's a network," Jun realized. "The Forerunners built a backup system that spans the entire galaxy, and it's all activating at once." Outside, they heard the sound of ships. Through the windows, they could see Talon vessels in the sky, firing weapons at the ruins. But their shots seemed to dissolve in midair, stopped by some invisible shield. "Too late," Crow said, looking at Sue. "The truth cannot be destroyed now." The crystal spun faster, its light reaching every corner of the room. Crow walked to the center of the depot and spread its wings wide. It spoke once more in the ancient language, a long, complex speech that the crystal seemed to amplify and translate into pure information. When it finished, the crystal shot straight up through the roof of the depot, joining the beams from the ruins in the sky. There was a flash of light that lit up the entire colony like day. And then every communication device on New Sol began to receive the same message, in every language known to humans and aliens alike. "We were the Forerunners. This is our story. Listen and remember." 1 month after the great broadcast, New Sol was a different place. Ships from Earth and other human colonies filled the sky. Scientists, diplomats, and curious visitors crowded the streets. The ruins, once ignored, were now protected by a special force from Earth. June stood on the hill overlooking it all. Beside him stood Crow, no longer feared or mocked, but treated with respect by everyone who saw it. "Hard to believe how much has changed," said Minji, walking up to join them. She wore the new uniform of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. "The whole galaxy is different now." News had come from across the stars. The Talon's power had collapsed overnight. On world after world, the truth had been revealed by memory carriers and activated ruins. Other species, many who had been ruled by the Talons for centuries, were now free. "What happened to Sue?" Joan asked. "He and the other Talon leaders have been taken to Earth for questioning," Minji said. "Director Han too. They'll face justice for trying to hide the truth. June nodded. He looked at Crow, who was watching the sky with keen eyes. And Crow, what will happen to it now? Minji smiled. The Earth Council has officially recognized Crow as a sentient being with full rights. It's been invited to join the new galactic council that's forming. As have you. Jun blinked in surprise. Me? I'm just a scientist. A scientist who helped reveal the biggest truth in galactic history, Minji said. Every species wants to meet the human who listened when others mocked. In the weeks since the broadcast, more had been learned about the Forerunners' plan. They had seen the betrayal coming but chose not to fight. Instead, they created a vast network of memory carriers. Animals, plants, even some simple life forms, and encoded their knowledge and history in their DNA. Then they set a timer, a genetic clock that would one day awaken these memories across the galaxy all at once. The Forerunners played the long game, Jun said. They waited millions of years for justice. Below them, in what had once been Jun's small lab, stood a new building. A communications center linked to the ruins, where Crow and other memory carriers could speak to each other across the stars. A group of visitors from Earth approached the hill. Among them was a tall woman in the uniform of the Earth Science Academy. Dr. Jun, she called. The delegation from Centauri has arrived. They'd brought their own memory carrier, a creature like a lizard that speaks the ancient language. They're eager to meet Crow. Jun nodded. We'll be right there. As the woman left, Jun turned to Crow. Ready to meet another carrier. Crow made a sound that was now familiar to Jun, a sound of agreement. Since the broadcast, Crow had continued to access more of the stored memories. It could now speak in human language when it wanted to, though it still preferred the ancient tongue for complex ideas. The beginning of something new, Crow said in its deep, strange voice. The three of them, human scientist, diplomat, and memory carrier, walked down the hill toward the new center. People stopped and bowed respectfully as they passed. Some reached out to touch Crow gently, as if for good luck. In the meeting hall, representatives from 12 species waited. At the center stood a large lizard-like creature with scales that shimmered like jewels. When it saw Crow, it made a series of clicks and whistles. The ancient language. Crow responded in kind. The two memory carriers approached each other while everyone watched in respectful silence. What are they saying? Someone whispered. They're greeting each other as old friends, Jun explained. Though they've never met, they share the same ancient memories. As the two carriers spoke, images began to appear in the air between them. More history, more knowledge from the Forerunners. The gathered representatives watched in awe. Later, as the meeting ended, a diplomat from Earth approached Jun. When you first created that giant bird, people thought you were mad, she said. They laughed at you and your strange pet. Jun smiled and looked at Crow, now the center of attention, respected by beings from across the stars. Yes, he said. They laughed at my horse-sized crow, until it spoke in dead tongues and changed the galaxy forever.